Welcome back to another episode of the Between the Lines podcast. Back here again with Tiago and Kyle. How we doing, guys?
Golden.
All good, man. All good.
There we go. Like to hear it. All right, today we're going to be talking about something the whole world wants to stop talking about today, which is the coronavirus. Before we get into that, we're going to go right into some sports time machine. So this week we're doing it for the week of May 10th. That being said, I'm going to go with Yogi Berra. On the date of May 12th, 1925, Yogi Berra was born. So happy birthday to Yogi Berra, who is now deceased. But yeah, go Yogi Berra.
Rest in peace. I'm going to go with, in 1982, Chicago Cubs became the first Major League Baseball team to win 8,000 games. So, go Cubs.
I'll go talk a bit of a Premier League story. 2012, the Manchester City won the Premier League title on a very disputed match against QPR. Aguero scored the final goal in the extra minutes, and it was a crazy time for Manchester City fans who have not watched the title win since forever.
Sweet. All right, let's just dive right into this puppy. Before we start specifically talking about the coronavirus and how it's affected the sporting world, I figured we could kind of just personally talk about our situations and like kind of what it's been like for us to like now be living in a world where there hasn't been sports for 2 months. Because for me, it's been pretty crazy, man. Because like year round, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, or for some hockey and even soccer, it's like no matter what time of the year is, there's always something going on. And I think like to an extent, I've kind of not fully, but sometimes like my schedule at some points in like a week or a month, it's kind of like not ran off like a sports clock, but like it's all like in relation to like this is happening on Saturday or this game's at 7 on X days or Y day. So it's been kind of weird like that. But like personally, like how has it been for you guys kind of like adjusting to like the COVID-19 world?
Man, it's crazy. I mean, I miss sports. I think everybody does. So, and it's so crazy too because it affects me not only watching sports, but half of my day is going to play some kind of sport. So now that all gyms are closed, I can't go hoop at all. I mean, you can't really go and play any kind of pickup soccer. Like I can't go and play other games with whoever. So that kind of sucks. I was looking to join some leagues and stuff as soon as I moved out here. Not happening. So, and then just watching sports. I don't have like a Saturday night to be able to wait for the finals game to come on, which is supposed to be happening now. Can't even watch that. So it's tough, but we waiting on the return, so we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Cal on that one. Been so bored without sports that I started simulating games on 2K just to watch somebody play and be competitive. That's kind of lame, but yeah, I totally agree with Kyle. I was not expecting this to happen at all, and I was about to start my football season here in a minor league team, and that went to hell too. I mean, it was postponed. We don't know when we're gonna get back. I think even more than watching sports, I miss being on the field. Miss just playing some pickup basketball with my friends. Just just being active every week, like it's part of our routine. All of us been playing together, and it's just so weird, man. We haven't been living without sports for ages now, and it's like Max said, even if it's not your favorite sport, there's always something going on. Hockey, soccer, football, basketball, wherever. And at this point, I would be happy to watch like a third division Indian League soccer match just to see somebody play. Not gonna lie, I just miss the competitiveness, the trash talk on social media, whatever happens, highlights, whatever, man. It was all such a big part of our lives, and now it's just awkward.
That's funny. You talk about the Indian soccer. The South Korean baseball league was supposed to restart again, and there's actually like a few players that I'm not sure exactly if it started yet or it's meant to like very soon. But there's quite a few players that played professionally in the States that are now over in South Korea. So I don't know, man. I might have to turn some of that on at some point just to check it out too.
Well, the league in Germany is starting up, the Bundesliga.
Bundesliga? Is
Yeah.
it really?
Yeah.
So
May
what's the deal?
15th, 16th.
What's up with the Premier League, Dan? Have they made any decisions?
Nah.
Nah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting to see some of the governing bodies and leagues around sports in different countries, the ones that have kind of moved more quickly in terms of trying to get things back, and then there's obviously others that are kind of just trying to take the slow road and just see how things are
Yeah.
going to unfold. Because
Like
I think
France shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's many concerns about, because it's you start the league back up, but does that mean that you're going to have fans come in right away? Because there's so many legal concerns for these teams, right? Because if you just let fans back in and there becomes this mass outbreak of the coronavirus and somehow linked to an event that you held legally, you you could find yourself in a problem there. So I think a lot of teams and leagues are taking it slow, so they release liability from lawsuits and getting in trouble and things like that. But before we further dive into the sports, let's talk about just work lives and kind of our plans that we had. Obviously, I think most audience knows we're all in this grad program at USF, trying to make it here in the sports industry. Tiago, why don't you take this off first and just talk about kind of how just navigating through this time it's been a little bit interesting for you.
Well, when I got here, the first job I got, as you guys know, was event manager at Stanford, and unfortunately that was postponed too. I was actually looking forward to start working with any kind of sports. Really, we were just gonna start organizing all the sports leagues and all the sports events related to Stanford athletics, and I was totally looking forward for the football season to start, which is still in a while, but also it's my favorite sport. But apart from that, I was also looking for opportunities related to social media, sports analytics, and now that everything is a little bit in standby, there's not much that I can choose from. Obviously, I always keep trying to network with everybody that I can in the industry, because sports industry is all about networking and knowing who you're talking to and trying your best shot to get to your dream job. But I mean, for the time being, I was happy with my role at Stanford. But right now, there's nothing we can do, since athletic sports is not coming anytime soon. As it seems, there's no news about that. We don't know when it's gonna resume, so we all just in standby.
Feel it. I was at the Y, so I mean, I'm waiting for that to come back. I don't think they can keep the Y closed forever. I mean, it's the YMCA, So hopefully, when that comes back, I can head back and start working there again. But throughout the program, I've been trying to work with any basketball team. So I was about to try to start working with USF women's team, and then maybe see what I can do with the men's team. Hit up local universities, maybe see what Stanford or Cal, if they need any help. So I was trying to do a little bit of that, trying to do some youth camp coaches at the Warriors, maybe see what other AAU programs are around, just trying to get around, see who's willing to join or let me join. So just a little bit of everything. I just gotta wait it out.
Totally. I think so many people are in that position right now. I was on CNN and I was looking at just some numbers and statistics, and a headline flash that said the unemployment rate is now at 14.2% in the United States, and that's the highest it's ever been since the Great Depression. So it's not that this is just specific to the sports industry. People all across the country and the world are having problems when it comes to employment, keeping a job, providing for families. But that being said, kind of like Tiago, I was in a similar position. I was, slated to start a pretty neat internship with the A's in their community engagement department. It was funny. I was thinking back the other day when I just kind of checked in with the manager of the department, just see how things were going, if there are any updates. And I was talking to her. I was just because orientation night for the job was right before the whole coronavirus thing took off, and we were talking. We were like, "Oh yeah, there's maybe concerns that spring training might get postponed a week or two, or this, the season might get pushed back a week or two." And it's now we're on day who knows what, a quarantine. So it's just funny to see how quickly this thing all went by. But yeah, no. So like a lot of my plans have been put on the wayside, like for now too. But like I'm still like positive mindset and just trying to keep it moving. But yeah, I think that's all that we can really say at the moment right now. All right, now let's just dive right into this whole sports thing. So I'm gonna give a few little notes here, just in case the audience doesn't know about the three major leagues that we cover here on this podcast. So the NBA actually reopened its practice facilities May 8th, which I believe was 2 days ago. So there's kind of a few rules as to like how this situation is going down. So there's no group participation involved of teammates on the team. So I think there cannot be more than 4 players on the court participating together at one time. And this was interesting, but there's no participation allowed from head coaches or assistant coaches at all. So it's pretty much just like open for just getting up shots in, like just putting in some work, that type of thing. When it comes to baseball, they're still kicking around start date ideas. I've seen July 1st as like a pretty hot topic for the MLB. They're considering whether they're going to be playing games at spring training stadiums, or they'll be returning to the club's home ballparks where they'll play these games without fans, probably for the foreseeable future for a while. The NFL is kind of the only league right now where it's they're in a position where they don't really have to make too many plans because their season's, still a few months away. Obviously, this whole thing's going to definitely affect like OTAs and training camp, but it seems like they're moving forward as normal with the regular season, start date. They just released the season schedules, so they made no comment about pushing anything back. So that seems like all normal right now. But now let's talk about the idea of professional sports games and athletes being played in arenas and stadiums with no fans. It's pretty crazy, man. But I think we need it. I think seeing sports and being able to participate in sports with no fans is better than none at all. But let me know what you guys think about it.
I'm gonna say that we have to do that, and the whole world is already online. We're already all on Zoom, all on like whatever platform we have to use to make these calls and stuff. Everybody's live streaming stuff. So if we need to get sports back, that's what we're gonna have to do. You can't just bring back all fans in the middle of a pandemic. It's just not gonna work. So if we really want sports back, that's something we're gonna have to just deal with. So
Yeah, I agree with Kyle, but I think I actually had this conversation around here in the house a few days ago. Like, how will playing without fans will affect the players itself? Because well,
definitely,
if you think about it, just imagine like one of Kobe's clutch shots, or imagine like Damian Lillard's shot against OKC on the last playoff run. Imagine that without fans. It's just insane. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think like part of the thing that drives players to make these amazing plays, and I'm talking about the NBA, can be related to any other sports, but part of the thing that is related to the players making these amazing plays and being clutch or just being inspired to do something great on court. Uh, Part of it comes from the fans, from the noises of the stands, and the concept of playing at home. It's not like playing at home because you're playing on your hometown or you're playing for your home city. It's playing for your own fans, and I think the concept of playing at home will just be ruined because I don't see many difference between playing in an arena in Portland without fans or an arena in LA without fans. But I definitely think I definitely agree that it's better than not having sports. Obviously, I'm excited to watch the league anyways, but I just think like it's gonna affect the players' psychology just in very different ways. I don't think we will keep watching so many highlight plays, so many crazy plays, and even if it happens without the fan from the noises after the play, like the whole crowd noise going wild on a crazy play, it's such a big part in sports, like it's something that you're so used to and you want to watch so much, like the fan engagement. I don't know, man, it just seems tough.
yo,
Yeah.
I want to say though, real quick, Max, that
hmm
it's gonna kind of it's almost gonna like equal it out, because you're taking out a factor that can affect certain teams. Like think about a
Hmm.
team like the Warriors, right? They really, they're good. Don't get me wrong, like they're one of the top teams ever. But imagine not having their fans in there, or having, that small area with, all these fans just yelling at you. Think of like another, I don't know, a soccer team like Porto, right? If they didn't have all their supporting fans, like now it's just like almost like raw skill. Like you're just seeing who is like legit better without another factor coming into play. That momentum thing throwing people off. So it'd be interesting to see. So
Yeah, totally. This is interesting, but I was watching the UFC fights last night. So these weren't like simulations. This is like real, fist on fist, like foot to the face UFC. But with the no fans in the audience, what was crazy was listening to the live audio from the event. So you could hear everything. You could hear the trainers outside of the ring saying, left jab, back up, move left, like, and then you could hear all the noises of the hitting. It was just like kind of surreal, right? Because when you have a whole audience at a UFC fight, there's so much background noise that you're not hearing any of that stuff. But I just thought that was really interesting, and it doesn't really answer the question for the players or the viewers as to how, no fans will kind of cause the situation to be. But I think that's one thing that we're actually going to really end up liking with the no fan situation is all the audio and like you're going to really hear how these players get coached, So I think that'll be interesting, and I just like wanted to make that random point there. But when it comes to like no fans, how I think of it, it's like, if us three wanted to go play a game of pick up basketball, like we are not NBA players. Nobody's paying us millions of dollars, to go hoop. But it's funny now, though. That's kind of somewhat of a similar situation that they're going to find themselves in.
Yeah.
Obviously, the camera crews are going to be there, and they're still going to be getting paid, and standings are real. 80 years from now, like, assuming the season does restart, somebody's going to win the championship. 80 years from now, it's not going to be like, oh, you won the COVID-19, NBA finals. It's like you're an NBA champion. So, but I do think it's just interesting because I know players like LeBron have talked about like, he said he doesn't have interest in playing in front of like an arena that has no fans. So I think like there's a ton of different mindsets. Obviously, like LeBron's at the top of the top in terms of like stardom and just like brand power in the NBA. But I think it's crazy. But all in all, I think we can just agree that no fans in attendance is better than not having sports at all, just for right now, at least.
Definitely. I think it's just going to be surreal, like you said. It's like imagining a Steelers game without all the terrible towels, or a Raiders game without fans. It's just, and no tailgating. It's just wild.
Mhm.
That's pretty weird.
Surreal. It's really
Right.
weird. It's really, really weird.
And there's actually one other thing I wanted to talk about. So, some states like Georgia, for instance, they've repealed back some of their rules about like social distancing and like the kind of, staying at home laws. One of the things I was reading online is like, what if, obviously the Atlanta Hawks are going to the playoffs, but hypothetically, let's say they were, and what if the state of Georgia was like, we don't have issue with this. We're going to let our fans go to games, but the state of California is taking like a much slower approach, and they're just like, this is not right. Coronavirus is still like very real. Having this many people at a stadium could just cause so much damage. So what if it seems like the NBA or whatever league in charge would have to kind of, clearly define rules and laws as to like, almost all states are not allowing mass gatherings. So no stadiums will in effect have fans at games. But like, I don't know, I was thinking, what if they didn't? What if states like Georgia like tried to allow these fans to come in and like have like I don't know, let's call it a home court advantage where other teams in different states don't have that. I thought that would be interesting, but I don't know, I feel like they'd find a way to probably deal with that and not allow it.
I think the NBA would jump in and shut that down. There's no way that could work, because you can't have just one state that's going to be having fans, and everybody else is trying to take, preventative measures to stop this, outbreak. You can't have this state just having all their fans. So NBA would have to jump in at that point and move the Warriors out of Atlanta or something, like for the season, or like make them train somewhere else.
Right.
like at a neutral site if they're still like in the playoffs for some reason. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree
Hmm.
with Kyle. I think any league that had to face with that situation had to jump in and just take measures. I imagine, like, if it happened for the NFL, like as an example, and Georgia fans were able to go to the Falcons games, that would even put the players at risk, and that can cause a whole outbreak within the players again, because like players go through the tunnels and fans are near them, and imagine just a fan touching a player and that causing another outbreak. That's just insane. I don't see any possible situation where that's gonna happen. If the fans are to come back, they will come all back, but it's only when it's like safe to do it. I don't see any league right now taking risks like that, because can you just imagine the controversy facing the league if another player got the virus because of a fan, or if another fan got the virus, or just an outbreak on a Falcons game? That would be terrible for the franchise. That would be terrible for the league. I just don't see them taking those risks.
Yeah, for sure. It would be a bad look all the way around.
Hmm.
Next topic here. So I think we'd all agree that, the sporting world is essentially a part of the entertainment industry, just in terms of, fans strictly like tuning in because they get great enjoyment and satisfaction, have like much passion for whatever their team is. But assuming the coronavirus kind of like dies down here in the coming months, and slowly fans are being rolled back into stadiums. I kind of was thinking about this the other day. Like, what if there's a scenario in which attendance at these sporting events is still pretty bad for like maybe a year or two, even after the coronavirus? Because assuming there's no vaccine that's been created for this virus, I think there's a lot of people in the world that will still kind of have fear and be afraid to go to mass gatherings like sporting events, just due to concerns of especially elderly people, or just people that are just kind of more fearful in general about just a ton of different things. So I was wondering what you guys might how do you think this how do you think the sporting world and live attendance at games could be, say, 6 to 12 months from now?
Well, when we brought up the whole topic, this is kind of what I was thinking about. What is the fan experience going to be following the pandemic? So, like, to go off what you were thinking, I was thinking more of, let's say for some reason we found a vaccine, right?
Hmm.
I think in the next couple of years, people are slowly going to start coming back, because you're still going to have half the people who are like kind of paranoid,
Yeah.
and then as an organization, you have to take all these measures now because we just got through a pandemic, right? So now you have to you have to work on what would happen if a new thing, a COVID-20 came out. Like you have to be ready for these new things, and so I don't know how exactly it's gonna change, but I know that the fans are gonna kind of react kind of different. Organizations have to find a way to improve what they were doing. Things are just going to constantly keep changing. I think they were like the fan experience is already changing, so it's just something that's going to keep happening. So
Yeah, I actually thought about a very funny possible situation regarding this fan engagement and how it will evolve. I actually saw, like, as soon as they allow people going back to the stadiums, like you said, people are still going to be scared, especially if there's not a vaccine. But I can see some people, more people trying to invest on VIP seats, the ones that are reserved
Yeah.
and like separate from everybody, and actually being willing to pay the extra price just for the sake of being between walls and separated from the rest of the fans. I can totally see that happening, even though people will still have contact outside the stadium, which is fucking inevitable. I just see people being picky to that point of trying to at least separate themselves inside the stadium. So I think probably teams will be facing a challenge of creating more of these seats, more of these separate and special seats, and that can definitely benefit the team since those seats are more expensive and people will be willing to pay more just to be watching a game. But apart from that, you talked about the FC Porto's fans a while ago. I'm pretty sure, like the main curva, as we call them, um, don't get me wrong, but those guys, as soon as as soon as it's open to go to the games, no, they will
They're
all
back.
go. They back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, bro. I just know how they are. Like their life, and I know some of them personally. I know that those guys live to watch a game on a Sunday. They just do. It's just like their high point in life, and I know that they are very depressive right now without the games. And just if you tell them right now, you can go to the stadium and watch a game tomorrow, they will go. They just don't care. There's just so many people that are dependent on watching that team's success on field, and they just leave so much for that they won't refuse just a chance to go back to the stadium. That I can
Well, that's kind of what
guarantee.
I was saying. Like, it's going to be like a 50-50 thing. So,
Yeah.
like, of course, you have those fans that are like going to go regardless, you know. And then I think you're just going to have like the other half of people who would go to a game just cause. I think they're going to think twice about it. So,
Yeah, you guys both just hit it there, but that was kind of a point I was going to touch on too. It's kind of that, I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but I would say there's population-wise probably a 25% group of people, being a Raiders fan, I can speak like pretty strongly on that issue where it's like, every Sunday morning, whether it's Sunday and the Raiders are playing on the East Coast or it's a Sunday home game, they wake up, slap that silver and black paint on their face. Like, it doesn't matter if like they're going into a war zone in like Afghanistan. If that's where the game's being played, like they're gonna be there. So I think there's gonna always be that group that's like willing to kind of risk it all, I guess you might say, just to like be there for the team they love and just to like support and whatnot. And then there's always that group that is like the casual sports viewer or just kind of going because of something to do. So I think that's going to be tough for franchises and leagues where it's to gauge their interest and create a fan experience where they feel safe and comfortable after everything that's happened. And I think another point we're talking about is kind of crisis communications, because you think about everything that's happened with COVID across the leagues. Before this happened, there was no plan for this. No league said, "Hey, if a pandemic breaks out and the world goes to shit, like we have these guidelines in place where we can XYZ solves our problems." So there was nothing like that. So I guess one positive outcome of this is like moving forward. There has now been kind of some guidelines or just like some processes created as to you know God forbid anything like this happens again. But if it does, kind of,
we're prepared.
exactly, just more prepared, really, is the thing. Um, and then Kyle brought up earlier the topic of just how virtual and digital the world has gone through the coronavirus. Obviously, in class in USF, we're all on Zoom every single time we meet now. But then I had this idea, what about Zoom experiences for sports, right? So let's say that let's just use basketball as an example. Basketball is going to restart again. Like we've said, there's not going to be any fans in the stadium. But what if there was something done where, I don't know how specifically it would be done up. Maybe it was random, or maybe it was random. Say the Trailblazers are in the playoffs. Randomly, there's groups created. You can sign up on a platform for a random group created of Portland Trailblazers fans. So it'll work just like this in Discord or Zoom, where there'll be a huge broadcast of the game on the screen and then a smaller tab below that'll have video feed. It'll have a chat, like a little chat comment section, how it does for us. So these fans will be live watching a game. They'll be able to interact with other fans on this platform and kind of communicate. And I think there's like a lot of different angles you'd have to work out to like make this work well, because obviously if you have like a huge amount of fans and Damian Lillard pulls up for a 3-point buzzer beater, it's just going to be chaos and people are just going to be screaming and going crazy. But I thought that would be cool. Like if you had 7 friends and you just wanted to watch the game together, you could create this Zoom chat. You could be talking like, while your team's playing. And I thought that would be interesting. I was curious what you guys thought about that.
I think ESPN made like an earlier version of that, maybe for like
Did
the
they?
NCAA tournament. Yeah, where
Okay.
like you can tune into give me college like Michigan, like Ohio State, right? Like let's say they were playing in Elite Eight or whatever. I think they had something at one point where you can tune into a Michigan stream and it'd just be like the the announcers are like pro Michigan, or like
Oh,
you
okay.
have like announcer or like pro Ohio State, who would say stuff
Yeah.
more about Ohio State. So I
I
think
think
they
they
had
did
something
that
like
for
that
a
at one
national
point.
championship game at one point
They
where
did? Okay.
they had something like that where they had for both sides. No, it was the NCAA
Yeah.
basketball tournament is what it was.
Okay. But
Mhm.
to what you said though, I think they should take advantage of this and do it with, more games. I don't know. Like you said, they'd probably have to work out a lot more stuff, but that'd be something crazy that could happen. So I
Yeah.
like what you said on
Yeah.
that one.
I agree with that, and I think one of the most important things when it comes to fan experience in games, it's fans like to be to appear in games. Fans like to be called on court. Fans like to be appearing on the main screen to earn all the awards in the game. Like all the fans um, hope they get their chance in another game. So I think if they made those platforms, it would be fun if they randomly selected people on Zoom on webcam
Yeah.
to just be on live for like a couple of seconds on the game stream, just for everybody in the world. I think fans would really like that, and that will keep like bringing them, because I know there's a lot of fans that like do everything they can in games to appear on the main screen. They just take random costumes, they scream, they dance, they do all these weird shit just to to be the focal point. So I totally agree with you, and I think if they take these measures to the point that fans can be appearing on the live stream too, and just be random selected to win awards and prizes, and have those 5 seconds of fame they always want to, I think that would even bring even more fans to join those things.
That's funny. I didn't even think about that part of it, but I think that's a great idea. Like randomly selecting people to kind of come on the broadcast feed as well. I think that's great because I think my main idea in thinking about this was it would just be a way for like teams and leagues to kind of unify their fans collectively. Because other than that, right now, of course, there's social media where fans can directly tap in with teams and leagues and make comments and who's to say how really close a fan can get on those platforms because most of the time no player or team is really responding to you, but I think that would be awesome. I think that would just be another way for fans to get closer to the game, especially in a time where things are confusing and everything is pretty hard right now. So I think it would just be awesome for any fan that like would have an opportunity like that. And then kind of another thing I wanted to talk about is the video gaming industry. We can talk about it broadly, but we can also talk about it in like relation to sports too. Obviously, like you have games like Madden 20, you got 2K20, MLB The Show that's exclusively on PS4 right now. But all those games are big. But I recently have gotten back into gaming. I know you guys both game, but since this whole like coronavirus situation has gone down, what have you seen in like the gaming world that whether that's yourself or your friends? Has gaming kind of? I know it's always been popular, but has it kind of just like elevated and picked up quite a bit since the whole Corona situation?
I mean, you see they're grabbing like all the players and doing different tournaments every week. So
Hmm.
that's what everybody's doing. I know the most recent one I saw was like all the top 100 high school athletes or high school basketball players. I saw all of them like grouped into like teams and they were playing like a Call of Duty tournament. And
Oh
then you
damn!
have Alex Caruso. He was playing a couple tournaments with like a couple FIFA tournaments with like some Premier League players. So that's all I know of that's really happening. I think that's all they can do right now. But it has
Hmm.
brought more light to esports. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think the gaming industry has been benefiting a lot from this situation. I mean, not just only related to sports. The franchise like Call of Duty and PUBG, whatever, they've been getting like a lot of fame, even more fame, because players are just streaming it, are just making tournaments on Call of Duty, and I mean 2K20 and Madden especially, they have been getting a lot of attention from players, from famous players to playing to other streamers. And I think it goes way beyond sports. I don't know if you guys know, but Travis Scott just made a concert on Fortnite, and that was like
Yeah,
that was huge. There was a lot of people watching on a game that most people thought it was dead
dude.
already. Just it just came back like that. I think for the gaming industry in general, people are like they have too much time to spend right now. And if I and honestly, talking about myself, I love video games. If I had to spend money right now, I wanted to spend on something that I could do right now at home and keep me entertained. So why not buy another game just because my favorite NBA player is playing it? Why not invest in some skin in the game or some purchasable thing in a game just because my favorite player says it's a great skin or is playing with it? I don't know. I just think it's growing a lot during this quarantine time.
And that Fortnite thing is crazy too. They're gonna have like Diplo and like Steve Aoki on that too. So
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're helping out other artists and stuff too.
So was that so I'm not really into the first person shooter gaming at all. So was Fortnite pretty much dead? Like was that not being played as much as of late?
It's a third person.
Yeah, it was heading
shooter,
downhill.
but it was
Sorry.
dying. But it was dying. I mean, in my opinion, but since like other games like Call of Duty start adopting the Battle Royale mode, which is like the Fortnite mode, which is like one people can leave and everybody has to die, or in squads, like your squad has to one squad left and the other squads has to be eliminated. I think when Fortnite came out, that was like a genius idea and everybody was into it. But now with PUBG, like Call of Duty adopting that game style, and other games like Apex coming up, I think Fortnite kind of lost its popularity as the battle royale game style. But with all of these concerts and like Kyle said, Diplo coming up, they sent like a skin for Travis Scott, and Travis Scott made a huge concert. I think it's a great comeback for the game.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty much back now. Like not as popping as they were before, but I mean I've seen them around. I see a lot of people playing it again. So I was even on it the other day. So
Right. Yeah, I guess I kind of asked the question just because with everything so dead right now in the time of corona, I was thinking to myself, how could the gamer experience be elevated? Because like we all agreed, there's so much like free time on your hands where whether you're binging movies or you're on Netflix or you're playing video games or you're playing card game, I don't know, whatever you're doing. But it seems like gaming is like one of the major things right now. So I was just trying to think of like interactive experiences that gaming companies could try and provide for their gamers or just like even like brands and specific games themselves. I think the perfect example has come up with the Travis Scott concert. It seems like Fortnite is thinking outside the box in terms of how to get eyes on their product and just kind of, draw back attention in like an interesting time. So that was kind of the main reason
I
I was
also
curious
think
about that.
they're also appealing to like the athletes and like all the people who are younger too. You know, you have like players like Devin Booker who are like famously on like Twitch and stuff. So you have like all these people who are not playing basketball right now, but they're like, oh, Devin Booker is my favorite player. I think he's kind of funny and he plays these games. You know, so I think maybe there's like some kind of connection that these brands could try to or like a pitch with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, go
also,
ahead, Tara.
yeah, I just had like I just remember like some of my friends made this immersive video game by themselves, which is pretty simple, but it was like the theme was about like Harry Potter stuff, and they made an actual tournament on Quidditch. So this might sound crazy, but during the quarantine, people are so bored that they got so engaged in this very simplified game for everybody that my friends did, that they made like a Quidditch type of game with just simple rules, but they try to make it competitive. And there was like 200 people watching on the stage
Wow.
they created. That was just crazy. They started as a fun idea just for friends, just to like keep our heads busy into something that was kind of grindy, but at the same time simple and competitive. And it ended up bringing like 200 people just to watch a match of pixels playing what was themed as a Quidditch game, just because it was competitive like that. And they even made like an after party after that. That was just wild. I remember like people talking about being drinking after the game, just celebrating the victory. It turned out to be, I don't know, man. Like, like people are, like you said, are so bored and missing sports that any kind of competitiveness, even if it's a Quidditch pixelated game, coming to
Yeah.
life, it's a real thing. People were
So
there. People were making comments. They had like a online radio, streaming the name of the players that were playing and streaming the calls as if it was a real game. It was surreal. I've never seen something like that. There was like commentators. There was like people making post game interviews. I mean, dude, like this started, like I said again, and big shout out to my friends who made this happening. But this started out as a thing for like 20 people, 30 people max, just a group of friends. And it just spread through. And it was in Portuguese. So only Portuguese speaking people joined in. So it was like Brazilian people, Portuguese people, whatever, man, just more than 200 people. That's wild. That's just, for me, it was like unreal to watch that happening.
that is crazy. It sounds pretty insane. Just like grassroots with the expectation there's 20 people for it to grow that big. That is crazy. Yeah, just a few of the things I've seen. Kyle kind of talked about it. I know the NBA put on like a players tournament for 2K. I think
Oh yeah.
DeAndre Ayton actually won it, if I'm not mistaken. And then I've seen some Madden stuff too, like NBA players and Madden players kind of battling it out. And I've seen just a lot of players kind of like not dropping their gamer tags, but like on their Instagram stories, like showing highlights of them, getting dubs in like Royale in the, Warzone Call of Duty game, or just like, videos of them playing with other professional players on, things like 2K or Madden. So I've just seen, exposure related to esports just grow like exponentially during this time for sure. The last question I have for today is related to college sports. Um, I think college sports are in a really interesting situation because what's different about college sports compared to pro sports is like, let's just use basketball for example, because they have less individuals on a roster than say a football team. But with basketball, there isn't much of a concern for an NBA team right now. Obviously, you want to eliminate any potential risk factors for players or like staff contracting corona. But the thing about college is there's so many, the campus population, this is me assuming that 6 months from now students will potentially be back on campus and not learning online through Zoom. But I think that it gets tricky because at a big time university, I don't know, let's just say like University of Miami or something, there's got to be probably like anywhere from 25,000 to 40,000 students on campus there. So I think there just becomes like a lot more health related concerns. And I was thinking from the perspective of like recruits that are now in high school and are having to make decisions about whether they want to go to college next year. Because like we talked about on the last episode, it's like if I'm a 5-star player, I could potentially just go to the G League. So I'm more looking at it from that avenue. And I'm wondering, with everything that's like so uncertain about, what seasons are going to look like, or even if they're going to happen for college sports next year, how do you think high level recruits that have options to go play professionally instead of going to college are going to kind of make decisions in the Corona world?
Well, two things with the whole college and opening up with their sports thing. I know it's kind of tough because, first of all, if they don't bring anybody back on campus, there's going to be no sports. I think that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
Now, let's say for some reason they do bring people on campus or whatever. I don't know how they'll do it, but pretty much if one sport plays, all sports have to play. Like they're not going to leave out certain sports. And then also just to go back into that too, it's going to be tougher with college sports because you look at a football program, they have way more than 50-something people on their team, right?
Yeah.
Because, in the NFL, you got to have a 53-man roster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
say
if you
there's
look at like a
probably around
B2,
90.
B3
Yeah.
on what college team?
I would say there's probably like talking about guys that are like redshirting, like all in all through the whole roster.
Yeah.
I'd say there's probably around 90 players.
Yeah, so now you have like a whole another problem with the college football team, and then you have other teams too who have like way more people than expected. So that's tough. But then with the college recruits thing, that also brings in another problem too, because not even talking about recruits, I just know some people who are looking at going to school next year, and they're just thinking like, why would I pay all this money to go to a giant university when I can do online learning from my local community college, or my local college here, local college there. So I think not opening up is going to make a huge challenge for these like new recruits. And then, like we said on the last episode, if they can make money now and they see that the G League is going to start opening up, I think those high level recruits are just going to go ahead and just make the jump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. I think it's going to definitely affect the recruiting, but I think another thing that it's going to bring up to the table is when a player really wants to go to college and wants to be recruited, he will be looking at what the university did for their students and athletes during this quarantine. If the school provided them with some extra money, extra scholarships, if the school actually reduced their fees, or if the school was like trying to help the students, like being engaged, or if the school just didn't care. I think that's going to be a main factor if somebody wants to be recruited, because you even if you have the chance to go to Alabama, and I'm just making like I'm not saying Alabama did this or that, but if Alabama never like helped their students during the quarantine and didn't reduce the fees or give extra scholarships, I think an athlete will think twice before going there, during this time, since they also have the chance to go pro right away. But yeah, I'm totally with Kyle on this one. I think it's going to have a huge impact when it comes to making a decision to play college or play professionally. And I think it's on the universities and the NCAA's hands to show the players that they are providing everything they can to keep them, like to keep them safe, to allow them to play, to figure out solutions for them to still be active and still be able to show their skills, to hire their future draft positions and chances to go pro. So I mean, it's not an easy task for the NCAA, and we all know the NCAA was struggling before this with people already going straight to pros for money concerns. So I think it's just a big challenge for the university and the NCAA right now. Really, really big challenges.
Yeah, I think Kyle made an interesting point. The question that remains is if student life isn't brought back on campus, is there any situation where the NCAA and specific universities would still allow athletics to go on, where football games would still be played on Saturdays with fans and no attendance, where basketball would be played with fans and no? So I think that trying to arrange that is a much more complicated situation than getting professional sporting leagues like the NBA and NFL to play games without fans. Because in college, I don't know all the specifics, but it seems like there's so many more variables in play there when trying to, iron out those
Mm-hmm.
situations. So I think that's really interesting. And then in terms of looking at it for recruits, I can speak on it. I wouldn't call it personally, but somewhat indirectly. So my sister right now, she's a senior in high school, and kind of like you said, Kyle, she's of the mindset. So she actually got into USF. So she's deferred it, and she's going to take a gap year because in her mind, it's like, why am I going to go to a private school like USF? It pay what, I don't know scholarship wise what anyone gets, but it's probably damn near 50,000 a year without scholarships. What's the point of paying that much
Yeah.
money to get online classes where you could get the same exact classes at a junior college for probably $800 a class a semester? And then
Yeah.
how that relates to student athletes themselves, especially if you're at it from the mindset of I maybe I was only going to play 1 year of collegiate basketball anyways, and I had intentions of going pro right thereafter. Then it really is like, what's the point of taking these online classes that I could completely care less about? Like, why not just spring launch myself straight to the G League and to where I eventually want to go, which is the NBA, sooner instead of I guess, bullshitting around for a year, doing things you don't care to do anyways, really.
hmm It makes it tough though for like other sports. So football, like
Mhm.
where they going? They have to play college because that's their next step, right? And then on top
Yeah.
of that, they don't even do a one and done thing, right? Because don't you have
Yeah,
to
you
do
got
3 years? And
you gotta play your junior
so
year before you can leave. Yeah, I
yeah,
think
and I'd want to play a junior year versus being 18 and going to in the NFL. So I mean, whatever. But
facts. Yeah, I think we kinda talked about that on the last show as well.
hmm
College football, and football in general is kinda only that one sport that is kinda
yeah,
limiting kinda immediate launch into the pros, but like we said, it's probably a good thing due to health concerns
yeah,
for a lot of young kids trying to go play out there with grown men.
But
But,
it's gonna affect other sports too, man. Like even if like for example, if you want to play varsity volleyball and you actually want to go pro, are you really gonna go straight from high school to like overseas during this situation? It's kind of risky, you know. So you actually aim to play for colleges to get some more reps, some more game tape, and actually get a nice contract overseas. And now what you gonna do? You know, like you that's basically your only two choices because I don't see like pro volleyball really paying out here in the US comparing to some overseas teams and some national championships outside. So that's kind of tough too.
yeah,
yeah,
totally. I think I think kinda to conclude this conversation here, I think we can just all agree that it seems like some leagues and teams are starting to kind of slowly figure the situation out. It seems for the most part nobody's moving too hastily or just rushing to like specific start dates or times for seasons to resume, which I think we'd all agree is like the wise decision here. Still so much is to play out before we have final answers. But I think just really America and the world does want its sports back. So if we can reel that back in safe environments, i.e., stadiums and arenas with no fans at the moment, I think that would be a big win right now. I think we're all looking for something to do, and getting sports back, I think it'd be pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
yeah. My
Yeah,
final thing is we need sports. We need it.
exactly.
But I think what everybody's gonna do is just there are certain leagues who are taking the first step and trying to open up, and I think there are leagues that are kind of just sitting back and just watching them. So that's pretty much what the world's gonna do. It's just like a waiting game. We're gonna see who opens up and if it works, what's happening in their situation, and then we'll see if we can apply it to ours or how we can make it better. So it's just gonna be a lot of trial and error for a little while.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I just want to mention one last thing too. I think one of the people that were mostly affected by this in terms of college sports, the guys that were going to be they're going to like graduate this year and have one last shot to prove themselves in like tournaments like the March Madness to just get one shot at the NBA draft, for example. I kind of feel bad. I actually feel really bad for all those people. But I mean, if anybody's watching us talking right now, and you're in that situation, I think you should keep like if you really want to go pro, there's a lot of possibilities for you outside of college sports too. So I think there's still a shot that you can get to the NBA even if you spend 1 year in the G League or you just go play overseas. There's always a chance, and I hope nobody in that situation who aspires to be a professional athlete doesn't give up because of the coronavirus because that's really important. The way that this virus is affecting people psychologically in anxiety problems and depressions related to your aspirations and thinking that the virus can take away your dream, it's kind of tough because that's what it feels like if you're a senior and you're about to graduate and didn't have a chance to play one last time in the March Madness tournament that you've been thinking for years now. I think you should not let that ruin your dreams and take it as the end of the world for you and just try to think about other solutions to still go pro and still live out your career.
Great points there. All right, that's a wrap for episode 5 of Between the Lines. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like. If you would like to add something to the discussion or give us any ideas or topics on our future shows, feel free to comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.